I built this house. Now you play by my rules.
The moment my wife Sophia suggested I'd rather kiss her dog than dance with her, I knew our marriage was over. What I didn't know was that she'd already been planning its funeral for months. "Come on, Eli," she laughed, her voice carrying across the crowded party like broken glass. "We both know you'd rather be in your workshop than here with actual people." The room fell silent. 30-something socialites in designer dresses turned to watch the show, their champagne glasses frozen halfway to their lips. Mason Carter, Sophia's real estate mogul boss, smirked from his position by the marble fireplace, clearly enjoying my humiliation. I'm Eli Quinn, 42 years old, former Navy engineer turned custom home builder. I've survived 3 deployments and countless construction site disasters, but nothing prepared me for the surgical precision of my wife's public execution of our relationship. "You know what, Sophia?" I set down my beer and stepped closer to her. The crowd leaned in, sensing trouble in the air. "You'll be kissing the doors of my house when I throw you out of it." Her perfectly applied makeup couldn't hide the flash of panic in her eyes. For just a moment, her mask slipped, and I saw the desperate woman I'd rescued from homelessness 8 years ago. The woman who'd signed a prenup without reading it because she was so grateful to have a roof over her head. "Eli, you're embarrassing yourself," she whispered, but her voice shook. "Am I?" I looked around the room at her so-called friends. Callie, the interior designer who'd never worked a day in her life. Jade, the yoga instructor whose husband paid for everything. Vanessa, the art gallery owner who sold overpriced prints to other rich wives. "Ladies, has Sophia told you about her humble beginnings? How she was living in her car when I met her at that charity event? How she cried when I offered her a place to stay?" "Eli, stop!" Sophia's face flushed red beneath her foundation. "But I was just getting started." Or maybe she's mentioned how she never actually read that prenup she signed. You know, the one that says she gets nothing if she cheats? The room erupted in whispers. Mason's smirk disappeared as he realized the implications. Sophia grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my skin. "We need to talk. Now." "No, we don't." I pulled away from her grip. "I think we've said everything we need to say." As I walked toward the door, I caught fragments of excited gossip already spreading through the crowd like wildfire. By tomorrow, everyone in our social circle would know that Sophia Quinn's perfect marriage was built on lies and legal documents she'd been too desperate to read. I drove home in my old Mustang. The engines rumbled, drowning out the echo of laughter from the party. Our house, my house, according to that prenup, sat dark and empty on the hill overlooking the coast. I'd built it myself, every beam and nail placed with precision and care. Sophia had decorated it, turning it into a showcase for her new identity as a successful woman who'd never been homeless, never been desperate, never been saved. Inside, I poured myself a whiskey and sat in my workshop, surrounded by the tools and plans that actually mattered to me. My phone buzzed with texts from Ryan, my oldest friend, and the only person at that party who'd seemed genuinely uncomfortable with the spectacle. "Dude, you okay? That was intense." I typed back, "Just getting started." Because as I sat there in the silence, pieces of a puzzle I'd been ignoring for months suddenly clicked into place. The late nights Sophia claimed were work meetings, the expensive jewelry that appeared without explanation, the way she'd started criticizing everything about me, from my clothes to my friends to my profession. She wasn't just cheating, she was building a case for why she deserved to leave me. And Mason Carter, with his slicked back hair and his Porsche and his reputation for taking whatever he wanted, was helping her do it. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from an unknown number. "Back off, or you'll regret it." I laughed out loud in the empty workshop. If Mason thought a threatening text would scare me, he clearly didn't understand who he was dealing with. I'd spent years in the Navy learning how to plan operations, how to anticipate enemy moves, how to turn their strengths against them, and I'd just declared war. The next morning, I woke up to find Sophia's side of the bed empty and cold. Her car was gone, along with most of her clothes. She'd left a note on the kitchen counter. "Staying at Callie's until you calm down. We need to discuss this like adults." Like adults. Right, adults who humiliate their spouses at parties and then run away when confronted with consequences. I called Ryan and asked him to meet me for coffee. He showed up looking like he'd slept in his clothes, which he probably had. Ryan owned a small electronics repair shop and had never quite figured out the whole professional appearance thing, which was one of the reasons I liked him. "Man, last night was brutal," he said, sliding into the booth across from me. "Sophia really went for the throat." She's been planning this, I told him. I just haven't been paying attention. What do you mean? I pulled out my phone and showed him the threatening text. Mason Carter sent this after I left. Ryan's eyes widened. Seriously? What are you going to do? Find out what they're really up to? I leaned forward. I need a favor. You still have connections from your security system days? Maybe. What kind of favor? The kind that helps me figure out if my wife is just cheating or if there's something bigger going on. Ryan studied my face for a long moment. Eli, are you sure you want to go down this road? Sometimes ignorance really is bliss. Too late for that. She made it public last night. Now I need to know what I'm dealing with. He sighed and pulled out his own phone. I know a guy. Dale Morrison. Used to be a cop, now he's a private investigator. Specializes in marital cases. Set up a meeting. 2 hours later, I was sitting in Dale Morrison's cramped office above a pawn shop downtown. Dale was a thin, wiry man with sharp eyes and the kind of mustache that had gone out of style in the 80s. His office smelled like coffee and cigarettes, and every surface was covered with case files and surveillance photos. So your wife humiliated you at a party, and now you want dirt on her, he said, not looking up from the notes he was taking. I want to know what she's planning. This wasn't just about embarrassing me. There's something else going on. Dale finally looked up. There always is. In my experience, when a spouse goes public with their contempt, they're usually building towards something bigger. Divorce, custody battle, financial claim, something where public opinion matters. She signed a prenup. She gets nothing if she cheats. Unless she can prove you were emotionally harmful, neglectful, or violated the terms of the agreement somehow. Dale leaned back in his chair. Tell me about this Mason Carter. I told him everything I knew about Mason. Successful real estate developer, married to a woman named Gina who rarely appeared at social events, reputation for aggressive business tactics, and an eye for other men's wives. I'll need a few days to gather background information, Dale said. In the meantime, I want you to start documenting everything. Every interaction with your wife, every text message, every phone call. If this goes legal, you'll need evidence. What about following her? Dale shook his head. Leave that to me. If you get caught stalking your own wife, it'll blow up in your face. But there is something you can do. What? Start acting like the wounded husband, publicly. Let people see you as the victim in this situation. Go to the places where her friends hang out. Be visible, be sympathetic, be the guy who got blindsided by his wife's cruelty. I didn't like the idea of playing victim, but I understood the strategy. In a war of public opinion, perception mattered more than truth. That afternoon, I drove to the country club where Sophia and her friends often had lunch. I sat at the bar, ordered a sandwich, and waited. Sure enough, within an hour, Callie and Jade walked in, whispering to each other and glancing in my direction. I made sure to look appropriately miserable, staring into my beer like a man whose world had just collapsed, which, in a way, it had. Eli? Callie approached cautiously. Are you okay? I looked up, making sure my expression showed just the right amount of pain and confusion. Oh, hey Callie, I'm trying to figure out what happened last night, where I went wrong. The two women exchanged glances. I could see the calculation in their eyes, weighing their loyalty to Sophia against their natural instinct for gossip. Maybe you should talk to Sophia, Jade said carefully. I tried calling her. She won't answer. I took a sip of my beer, letting my hand shake slightly. I know I'm not the most exciting guy in the world, but I thought we were happy. I thought she loved me. Callie sat down next to me, her maternal instincts overriding her friendship with Sophia. Eli, honey, sometimes people change. Sometimes they want different things. Different things like Mason Carter? The words hung in the air between us. Callie's face went pale and Jade took a step backward. I don't know what you mean, Callie said, but her voice lacked conviction. Come on, Callie. Everyone saw how they were looking at each other last night. How long has it been going on? For a moment, I thought she might actually tell me. But then her phone buzzed, and I saw Sophia's name on the screen. The spell was broken. I should go, Callie said, standing up quickly. You should probably go home, Eli. Sleep it off. After they left, I sat at the bar for another hour, nursing my beer and watching the other patrons. Several people approached to offer their sympathy or their curiosity about the previous night's drama. I played my role perfectly, the confused husband who just wanted to understand what had gone wrong. But inside, I was taking notes, Mental notes about who seemed genuinely sympathetic and who was just fishing for gossip, about which of Sophia's friends might be willing to switch sides if the right pressure was applied. My phone buzzed with a text from Dale. Preliminary report ready. Can you meet tonight? I finished my beer and headed back to his office. This time, Dale had a manila folder waiting for me, thick with photographs and documents. Your instincts were right, he said, sliding the folder across his desk. This isn't just an affair, it's a campaign. I opened the folder and felt my stomach drop. The first photograph showed Sophia and Mason in what was clearly a hotel room, but they weren't in bed. They were sitting at a small table, papers spread between them, deep in conversation. Business meeting? I asked. Keep looking. The next photo showed Mason's car parked outside a law office, then Sophia entering the same building an hour later. There were photos of them at restaurants, always in deep conversation, always with documents or phones between them. They're planning something, Dale said. And based on the law firm they're visiting, I'd say it involves either a divorce or a lawsuit, maybe both. The final photograph made my blood run cold. It showed Sophia talking to a man I didn't recognize outside our house. The man was taking pictures of the property, making notes on a clipboard. Who's that? Real estate appraiser. They had your house evaluated 3 days ago. I sat back in my chair, the pieces finally clicking into place. This wasn't just about Sophia wanting out of our marriage. This was about her wanting everything I'd built, despite the prenup that should have protected me. They're going to claim the prenup is invalid, I said. Dale nodded. That's my guess. Probably argue that you coerced her into signing it, or that she wasn't mentally competent, or that circumstances have changed significantly since it was signed. Can they do that? Depends on the prenup and the judge. But if they can paint you as controlling or toxic, if they can show that she's contributed significantly to the marriage's success, they might have a shot. I thought about Sophia's public humiliation of me at the party, how she'd made sure everyone saw me as the boring, controlling husband who didn't deserve her. It wasn't just cruelty, it was strategy. What's my next move? Dale smiled, and for the first time since I'd met him, he looked genuinely pleased. Now we start building your case. And trust me, Mr. Quinn, by the time we're done, they're going to wish they'd never started this war. Dale's plan was elegant in its simplicity. Instead of confronting Sophia and Mason directly, we were going to give them exactly what they thought they wanted. Evidence that I was the controlling, emotionally unstable husband they needed me to be. The key, Dale explained over coffee the next morning, is to make them overconfident. Let them think their plan is working. Let them get sloppy, and then document everything they do wrong. You want me to act crazy? I want you to act hurt and desperate. There's a difference. Crazy gets you arrested. Hurt and desperate gets you sympathy. The first phase of our plan involved me showing up at Sophia's temporary residence, Callie's mansion in the hills, with flowers and a heartfelt apology. Dale had positioned himself across the street with a camera, ready to document whatever happened next. I knocked on Callie's door at exactly 2 p.m. when I knew Sophia would be there for their daily gossip session. Callie answered, looking uncomfortable. Eli, what are you doing here? I need to see my wife. I held up the bouquet of roses I'd bought at the grocery store. I need to apologize. She doesn't want to see you. Please, Callie, I know I screwed up at the party. I was drunk and stupid and I said things I didn't mean. I just want to make it right. Callie's expression softened slightly. She'd always had a weakness for grand romantic gestures, probably because her own husband showed about as much emotion as a houseplant. Wait here, she said, closing the door. I could hear voices inside, heated whispers that carried through the expensive wood. After a few minutes, the door opened again, and Sophia appeared. She looked perfect, as always. Hairstyled, makeup flawless, wearing a dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. But there was something different in her eyes. Harder. More calculating. What do you want, Eli? I want my wife back. I held out the flowers. I want to fix this. She didn't take them. You humiliated me in front of everyone we know. You humiliated me first. That's different. How is it different? Because you deserved it. The words came out sharp and cold, without a trace of the woman I'd married. You've been holding me back for years, Eli, making me feel small, making me feel like I should be grateful for scraps. I saved you. You were living in your car when I met you, and you've never let me forget it, have you? Sophia stepped closer, her voice rising. Every time I wanted something better, every time I tried to improve myself, You reminded me where I came from. Well, guess what? I'm not that desperate girl anymore. No, now you're just a cheating wife. The slap came fast and hard, snapping my head to the side. I touched my cheek, feeling the sting, and saw Dale across the street adjusting his camera lens. Stay away from me, Eli. Stay away from my friends, and stay away from my job. Your job? I laughed. You mean Mason Carter's bed? This time she went for my face with her nails, but I caught her wrist. For a moment we stood there, locked in a struggle that had nothing to do with physical strength and everything to do with 8 years of buried resentment. Let go of me, she hissed. Or what? You'll call the police? Tell them your husband tried to give you flowers? I'll tell them you're stalking me, that you're unstable, that you threatened me. Did I threaten you, Sophia? Because all I remember is apologizing and offering you flowers. She jerked her wrist free and stepped back. This conversation is over. No, it's not. I dropped the flowers on the doorstep. It's over when I say it's over. This is my house, my life, my marriage you're trying to destroy. And I'm not going to make it easy for you. The door slammed in my face, but I'd gotten what I came for. Sophia had revealed her true nature in front of witnesses, and Dale had captured every moment. Phase 2 began that evening. I called Mason's office and asked to speak with him directly. Mr. Carter is in a meeting, his secretary said. Tell him Eli Quinn called. Tell him I want to discuss a business proposition. What kind of business proposition? The kind that involves my wife and his future. 20 minutes later, Mason called back. What do you want, Quinn? I want to make a deal. What kind of deal? The kind where you get what you want, and I don't destroy your life in the process. There was a long pause. I don't know what you think you know. I know you've been screwing my wife for 6 months. I know you've had my house appraised. I know you think you can steal everything I've built. I kept my voice calm, reasonable. But I also know you're married to Gina Carter, who comes from old money and doesn't like scandals. Are you threatening me? I'm offering you a way out. Meet me tomorrow night at the construction site on Maple Street, the big colonial I'm building for the Henderson family. Come alone, and we'll discuss terms. And if I don't? Then, Sunday morning, Gina gets a very interesting photo album delivered with her breakfast. I hung up before he could respond. Dale, who'd been listening on speaker, shook his head. You sure about this approach? He'll come. Men like Mason can't resist the chance to gloat. He thinks he's already won. And if he brings backup, then we improvise. The next evening, I arrived at the construction site an hour early. The Henderson house was nearly finished. A massive colonial with all the modern amenities wealthy families demanded. I knew every inch of it, every electrical circuit, every plumbing connection, every structural beam. Dale was positioned in the house across the street with his camera and a radio. If things went bad, he'd call the police. If things went according to plan, he'd document Mason's confession. Mason arrived exactly on time, driving his silver Porsche like it was an extension of his ego. He parked next to my truck and got out, looking around nervously. Quinn, where are you? Up here, I called from the second-floor balcony. Front door's open? He climbed the stairs slowly, his expensive shoes echoing on the unfinished hardwood. When he reached the main floor, I was waiting in what would eventually be the living room, sitting on a stack of lumber. Nice place, he said, looking around. You do good work. I know. That's why people pay me to build their dreams instead of trying to steal them. Mason's fake smile disappeared. Let's cut the crap, Quinn. What do you want? I want to know why you think you can take my wife and my house and walk away clean. Your wife came to me, not the other way around. She's unhappy. She wants more than you can give her. She wants money. Your money? Maybe, but she's willing to work for it. Is that what you call it? Work? Mason stepped closer, his confidence growing. Face it, Quinn. You're a blue-collar nobody who got lucky. Sophia's realized she can do better. Better than the man who saved her from homelessness? Better than the man who's been holding that over her head for 8 years. Mason pulled out his phone and showed me a recording app. She's told me all about your emotional misuse, your controlling behavior, your threats. Threats? Like the one you made yesterday, about throwing her out of the house? I stood up slowly, letting him see that I was bigger than him, stronger than him, and very, very angry. You recorded our conversation yesterday? Sophia did. She's been documenting your behavior for months. Every argument, every time you reminded her of her past, every time you made her feel worthless. And you think that's going to hold up in court? I think it's going to destroy you. Mason's smile was pure poison. See, the thing about prenups is that they're only valid if both parties entered into them freely. But if we can show that Sophia was coerced, that she was in a manipulative and emotionally harmful relationship, that she signed under duress, the prenup gets thrown out, and she gets half of everything, including this little construction business of yours. I nodded slowly as if I was finally understanding the scope of their plan. And then she marries you and you get access to all my assets. Something like that. There's just one problem with your plan, Mason. What's that? I pulled out my own phone and showed him the recording app that had been running since he'd arrived. You just confessed to conspiracy to commit fraud. His face went white. I can't what? Record a conversation on my own property? Document threats against my business and marriage? I stepped closer. See, the thing about being a contractor is that you learn to plan for every contingency. You measure twice, cut once. You document everything. Mason lunged for my phone, but I was ready for him. I sidestepped and let his momentum carry him into a stack of drywall. He went down hard, his expensive suit covered in dust and debris. Stay down, Mason. You're embarrassing yourself. He scrambled to his feet, his face red with rage and humiliation. This isn't over. Yes, it is. Because tomorrow morning, Gina gets copies of all the photos Dale took of you and Sophia, along with a recording of this conversation. And by tomorrow afternoon, everyone in your social circle will know exactly what kind of man you really are. You bastard. I'm the bastard who's about to destroy your marriage, your reputation, and your business relationships, all because you thought you could steal from me. Mason backed toward the stairs, his confidence completely shattered. Sophia will never forgive you for this. Sophia lost the right to my forgiveness when she decided to humiliate me in public. Now she's going to learn what real humiliation feels like. After Mason left, I sat in the unfinished house for a long time, thinking about what came next. The recording would protect me legally, but it wouldn't repair the damage to my marriage or my reputation. For that, I needed something bigger, something that would turn public opinion completely in my favor. I needed to give Sophia and her friends exactly what they'd given me, a public humiliation so complete and devastating that they'd never recover from it. And I knew exactly how to do it. The annual Coastal Charity Gala was Sophia's favorite event of the year. It was where she'd first met me 8 years ago, where she transformed from a desperate homeless woman into a polished socialite, where she felt most comfortable playing the role of successful wife and community pillar. It was also where I was going to destroy her. Dale had spent the week gathering additional evidence and making preparations. We had photos, recordings, financial documents, and testimonials from people who'd witnessed Sophia and Mason's affair. More importantly, we had Gina Carter. Mason's wife had been surprisingly easy to recruit once Dale showed her the surveillance photos. Apparently, Mason's affair with Sophia wasn't his first, and Gina was tired of being humiliated by her husband's wandering eye. I want him to suffer, she'd told me during our meeting at her lawyer's office. I want everyone to see what kind of man he really is. Are you prepared for the collateral damage? This is going to get ugly. Good. I've been playing the dutiful wife for 15 years while he screwed his way through half the city. It's time for some consequences. The gala was held at the Grand Ballroom of the Ocean View Hotel, the same venue where Sophia had humiliated me just 2 weeks earlier. I arrived alone, wearing my best suit and carrying a leather portfolio that contained the ammunition I'd need for the evening's festivities. Sophia was there with Mason, both of them playing their roles perfectly. She wore a stunning red dress that I'd bought for her last Christmas, back when I still thought our marriage meant something. Mason was in an expensive tuxedo, his arm possessively around my wife's waist, as they mingled with the crowd. They saw me enter but didn't approach. Instead, they whispered to Callie and Jade, who began spreading the word that the crazy husband had shown up uninvited. I could see the ripple of gossip spreading through the room, people turning to stare at me with mixtures of pity and curiosity. Perfect. I wanted everyone's attention. Ryan appeared at my elbow, looking nervous. Eli, what are you doing here? Sophia's been telling everyone you've been stalking her. Has she? That's interesting, considering I haven't contacted her since our conversation at Callie's house. She says you've been driving by her work, calling her friends, making threats. All lies, but don't worry. Everyone will know the truth soon enough. The evening's program began with dinner and speeches from local politicians and charity organizers. I sat at a table in the back, eating my salmon and waiting for the right moment. Sophia kept glancing in my direction, her nervousness growing as the evening progressed. Finally, the main presentation began. The charity's director took the stage to thank the major donors and present a slideshow of the organization's achievements over the past year. This was my moment. I stood up and walked toward the front of the room, my portfolio in hand. Several people tried to stop me, but I ignored them. The director saw me coming and looked confused. "Excuse me, sir, but—" "Ladies and gentlemen," I said, taking the microphone before anyone could stop me. "I'm Eli Quinn, and I have something I need to share with all of you." The room erupted in whispers. Sophia stood up at her table, her face pale. Mason grabbed her arm, trying to pull her toward the exit, but it was too late. Everyone was watching now. 2 weeks ago, my wife Sophia humiliated me at a party. She suggested I'd rather kiss her dog than dance with her. She made it clear that she thought I was beneath her, that our marriage was a joke, that I was holding her back from the life she deserved. "Security!" Mason shouted, but the hotel staff seemed as interested in the drama as everyone else. At the time, I thought it was just cruelty. I thought she'd fallen out of love with me and wanted out of our marriage. But then I discovered the truth. I opened my portfolio and pulled out the first photograph. This is my wife and Mason Carter in a hotel room 3 months ago, not having love, but planning. I held up the photo so everyone could see it. Gasps and murmurs filled the room. Planning what, you ask? Planning to steal everything I've worked for by claiming our prenup is invalid? Planning to accuse me of emotional misuse and coercion? Planning to take my house, my business, and my reputation? "That's enough!" Sophia's voice cracked as she shouted across the room. "You're insane! Security, get him out of here! Am I insane, Sophia? Or am I just a man who finally figured out that his wife is a fraud?" I pulled out another document. "This is a recording of Mason Carter confessing to conspiracy to commit fraud. Would you like me to play it for everyone?" The room had gone completely silent. Even the waitstaff had stopped moving. "You see, ladies and gentlemen, my wife isn't the successful, independent woman she pretends to be. 8 years ago, she was living in her car, homeless and desperate. I found her at this very event crying in the parking lot because she'd snuck in hoping to find someone to help her." "Stop," Sophia whispered, but her voice carried in the silence. "I took her home. I fed her, clothed her, gave her a place to live and a chance to rebuild her life. I married her not because she was beautiful or successful, but because I thought she was grateful. I thought she loved me." "I did love you," Sophia said, tears streaming down her face. "No, you loved what I could give you. And when you found someone who could give you more, you decided to take everything and leave." I pulled out the final document. This is a financial analysis showing that Mason Carter has been paying for Sophia's shopping trips, her spa treatments, her jewelry for the past 6 months, while she was still married to me, while she was still living in my house, while she was planning to rob me blind. The crowd turned to look at Mason, who had gone completely white. Gina Carter stood up from her table across the room, her own portfolio in hand. "Tell them about the others, Mason," she called out. "Tell them about all the other married women you've seduced while I looked the other way." "Gina, don't tell them about Jennifer Walsh, the banker's wife. Tell them about Patricia Simmons, the judge's wife. Tell them how you've been using affairs to gain inside information for your real estate deals." The room exploded in shocked conversation. Several men stood up, their faces angry, recognizing the names of their own wives. Mason backed toward the exit, but a group of large, well-dressed men blocked his path. "You're not going anywhere," one of them said. I recognized him as Patricia Simmons' husband, a former college football player who'd maintained his intimidating physique. "This is all lies," Mason said desperately. "Eli's trying to frame me because he can't accept that his wife doesn't love him." "Is it lies, Mason?" I pulled out my phone and played the recording of our conversation at the construction site. Mason's voice filled the room, clear and damning, confessing to the conspiracy and bragging about destroying my marriage. When the recording ended, the silence was deafening. Then Judge Simmons stood up, his face dark with rage. "Mason Carter, you're going to wish you'd never been born." That's when the real chaos began. Mason tried to run, but Patricia Simmons' husband tackled him before he could reach the door. Sophia collapsed into her chair, sobbing hysterically as her friends backed away from her. Callie and Jade looked mortified, realizing they'd been accessories to the fraud. Hotel security finally arrived, but instead of removing me, they helped restore order, while several people called their lawyers and the police. Mason was arrested on charges of conspiracy and fraud. Sophia was questioned but released, though her reputation was destroyed beyond repair. As for me, I became the hero of the story. The faithful husband who'd been betrayed and nearly robbed, but who'd fought back with intelligence and determination. By the next morning, everyone in the city knew the truth about Sophia Quinn and Mason Carter. The divorce proceedings were swift and brutal. The prenup held up perfectly, leaving Sophia with nothing but the clothes on her back and a reputation in ruins. Mason's real estate empire collapsed as his business partners and clients fled. His wife took him for everything in their divorce, and several other wronged husbands filed civil suits that would keep him in court for years. But the real satisfaction came 3 months later, when I saw Sophia working as a waitress at a diner across town. She looked older, tired, defeated. When she saw me, she approached my table with the kind of desperation I remembered from the night we'd first met. "Eli, please, I'm sorry. I made a mistake. I lost everything." "No," I said, not looking up from my menu. "You chose everything. You chose Mason, you chose greed, you chose to humiliate me in public. Now you get to live with those choices." "I have nowhere to go. I'm sleeping in my car again. That's not my problem anymore." She stood there for a long moment, waiting for me to change my mind, to offer her the same salvation I'd given her 8 years earlier. But that man was gone, destroyed by her betrayal and reborn as someone who understood that some people don't deserve second chances. "Your order, sir?" she asked finally, her voice breaking. "Just coffee, black." As she walked away, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Peace. The war was over, and I had won completely. Sophia had wanted everything, and now she had nothing. Mason had thought he could steal from me, and now he was the one who'd lost everything. Justice, it turned out, tasted exactly like victory.
벗기고 따기를 끌어가지고 그것까지 딱 그리고 이제 잡혀 넘기고 재밌게 방송 시작. 아니야 그거 누나 그거 중계 안 해줘도 돼 나한테. 내가 알아서 다 해. 중계 안 해줘도 돼. 중계 해줄 필요가 없어. 어차피 계속 그 연락 오고 있어 나한테. 카톡 오고 있어. 자꾸 그 중계하면은 안 돼요. 책임 넣는다 중계하면은. 나도 그랬으면 좋겠다 진짜. 오랜만에 큰 데 가는 거라서 나도 긴장돼. 작은 데는 아닌 큰 데 가서. 작은 데는 이런 부담감이 없거든 솔직히. 막 해도 되니까. 근데 큰 데니까 좀 내가 조심해야지. 큰 데니까. 작은 데는 그냥 축하나 많이 식으로 해도 돼. 근데 큰 데는 조심해야지 사실.
키키님 별풍선 1개 감사합니다. 미드커.
크신 분도 와요. 크신 분도 와. 그러니까 남자들은 족밥이야. 여자들이 메이저인 거지. 남자들은 족밥이에요. 미드 커요, 키키요. 미드가 멜론이야, 멜론. 내가 말했잖아. 여구부시 내가 말했잖아. 내가 가면은 내가 일장이라니까 남자 중에서. 내가 괜히 그런 말 한 게 아니라니까. 그러니까 눈치 빠른 사람들을 아는 거야. 누나가 자꾸 그 헛소리해서 그렇잖아. 이미 알 사람들은 알아 내가 어디 나가는지.